I often get asked by my students who are predominantly white coaches, can I truly serve people of color? I've heard this so many times that I feel like this needs to be an episode on its own. Can I truly serve people of color? Do I have what it takes to support their needs? Do they see me as a coach who can support them, who can help them meet their goals? These are thoughtful questions. They're good questions, but they are also deeply tied to assumptions about who your work is for.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started.
From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. I am excited to continue this conversation from last week. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, you'll know we took a deep dive into the roots of colonialism, from Portugal's colonization of Ceuta to the Berlin Conference and the way in which these events still influence our lives and businesses today. That episode was all about context, about understanding the legacy we've inherited. So, my friend, if you haven't listened, you need to go back and listen to that, because what I'm sharing today will make a lot more sense. So today we shift into action. We're going to explore what it means to decolonize your business, not just as a concept, but as a lived ongoing practice. And I feel like that word decolonize has been used so much. And sometimes when a word has been used a lot, we become desensitized to it, or it just doesn't excite us anymore. I tried to think of another word to use, but I couldn't come up with anything. And so please bear with me as I talk about, how to decolonize your business, because it's all about shifting how we think and looking at things through a different lens so that we are not just doing the things that we have done historically and leaving things the way they are, where certain groups of people continue to prosper, continue to grow, where it's not a level playing field. It is very much favoring a certain group of people. If we want to shift that, particularly in our online businesses, then we've got to do things differently. And to decolonize is part of that process. And so I'll share ideas you probably haven't heard before, especially if you're a solopreneur or online coach looking to build a business grounded in integrity and inclusion. Now, I want us to start with redefining your ideal client. Now, hang on. I'm not telling you to throw everything out. I just want you to take a moment right now to think about your ideal client. Who are they? What do they do? What issues are they facing? What problems are they experiencing? And how do you then come in as a person to support them with what they're going through? How can you ease their pain? And as you think of those people who are your ideal clients, who comes to mind? What are you seeing? How do they look? How do they sound? That's what I want to challenge. And the reason why I want us to start here is because I often get asked by my students who are predominantly white coaches, can I truly serve people of color? I've had this so many times that I feel like this needs to be an episode on its own. Can I truly serve people of color? Do I have what it takes to support their needs? Do they see me as a coach who can support them, who can help them meet their goals? These are thoughtful questions. They're good questions, but they are also deeply tied to assumptions about who your work is for. I'm going to say that again. These are deeply tied assumptions about who your work is for. If you've always imagined your ideal client as somebody, like I said, who looks like you, talks like you, moves through the world like you, it is worth asking, why? Why do I think in this way? What biases are influencing that vision I have about my ideal client? Now, you see, as I said, to decolonize your business starts with expanding that lens. It means reflecting on how whiteness may be centered in your branding, your testimonials, or even the language you use. Your work can be relevant across cultures, but that requires intention, it requires care, and it also requires deep listening. And when it comes to being more inclusive, when it comes to looking through a different lens, this is not something that just automatically happens. You've got to immerse yourself in the learning process. You've got to become more knowledgeable. You've got to, like you listening right now to this podcast, you are becoming more informed. You're learning things and hearing things. Perhaps maybe you've heard them before, but you're hearing them differently, and maybe they're landing differently for you so that you can begin to do business a little bit differently. You're being intentional in how you can serve. And this is where it all begins. And so I want us to look at different aspects of your business and how potentially, we can begin to look through a different lens, how we can begin to decolonize. So let's look at messaging, because messaging is really key to how you serve. People find you because of your messaging, right? So the words you use on your website, the way you're showing up on social media, and even the kinds of lead magnets you're creating. I want to ask some really powerful questions here. And I just want you to take your time to think about it. Don't just race to hear what I'm going to say next or race to the end of the podcast and just kind of move on with your day. I really just want you to sit with this one. Is your messaging transactional? Like, are you just doing this because you want to make money? Is it performative? Are you putting out your messaging so that you look and sound a certain way, like you're performing? Or is it rooted in care, like genuine care? And these are really important questions to ask. And you might be thinking, oh, this goes without saying, Annie. I'm a values-led person and I'm heart-led. My business is very heart-centered. And so these are things that for me is just automatic. But please take a moment and realize that the coaching industry is so saturated and it's so unregulated that anybody can come in and say they are a coach and not necessarily be having the same values that you have. And that is why a lot of our ideal clients are skeptical of coaches because of what they've seen the online coaching industry look like. Promises that are not kept, things that perhaps they were hoping to work on that they never get to realize. So we're working in an industry that's unregulated, and in so doing, we need to rise above what is there. And it is important that we're asking ourselves these powerful questions when it comes to your messaging. Is it transactional? Is it performative? Or is it really rooted in care? Now, a decolonized approach to messaging doesn't just mean adding more inclusive language. I've seen this happen where I have read language that is so inclusive, it is so well written. And I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention. To decolonize, it means thinking about how and why you're communicating this in the first place. Are your lead magnets genuinely helpful, or are they just a funnel to grow your list? And I think when we're new in business, we really just want to get those quick wins, and you're like, what can I create that can really grow my list? And in so doing, sometimes you can get into a situation where you end up doing things without genuinely creating something that you have taken the time to think about how it will serve people. Is it something that's clickbaity that will get people to click and, get their curiosity satisfied? Like, is it something that you just want people to quickly click on and grow your list? And a lot of times when we do it this way, people will opt in, but they will also opt out as quickly as they opted in. So we've got to be really, really intentional. And then your offers, are they created from a place of service, or are they driven by a need to prove something about your success? And it is okay to want to make money. We need money. Money is a good thing. But if your identity and sense of worth is tied to how much you earn, how many people buy, or how fast your business grows, you're likely operating within a colonial or a capitalist mindset. And when things aren't, selling, do you turn to bro marketing tactics, using fake urgency, scarcity, shame to push people to buy? I've seen this. You're not alone. And I've been sucked into it as well, because sometimes it seems as though that's what's working. This person is using this technique and it's working. So if I apply that, I want to be able to do it so that I can get results. But this is where the work is. Decolonizing means questioning whether your sales strategies align with a human first approach, not a money first approach. And that's really hard to do because we are living in a world where we are satisfied when things happen instantaneously. You're growing a business, but you don't want to wait years to grow that business. You want to launch something, your offers, and you want them to take off immediately. And you want to build on that because there's this language that you're hearing all the time: 6-figure business, 7-figure business, 8-figure business, 10-figure business. And you're like, well, if they're doing that, then I want that. And when it doesn't happen as fast as you think it should happen, then you feel like you failed. And so this is a mindset that is very much steeped in colonial thinking, and we need to shift that. How do we do that? And so I want to talk about relationships. So think about the relationships you're building. Are you networking only with people who look like you? People who have similar followings or feel safe to collaborate with? Or are you actively building relationships across cultures? Because when you look around the spaces you occupy, who are you seeing? When you think of the mastermind that you belong to, who are the other people at the virtual table or the physical table? When you think of the retreat that you are looking forward to attending or organizing, who are the people who are coming for those retreats? Who are the people that you are spending time with in these retreats? When you think of the networking events that you're attending, who are the people who are there? Who are the organizers? Ask yourself who's missing at the table, and is it okay with you? Is that okay with you? Let's shift to another subtle layer of influence. AI. Now, you may or may not know this, but most of the content creation tools you use, from social captions to even blog generators, they are powered by AI that has been trained on data sets that are not neutral. So this means your messaging could be replicating colonial values and racial bias without you knowing, especially if you're relying on tools that have no cultural or contextual nuance. I ask my students often to take a moment and ask themselves, how do your ideal clients feel when they land on your platforms? Do they feel seen? Do they feel like they've been considered? Do they feel welcome? And here's the thing. I've seen and personally experienced that, you can market with inclusive language, but that means absolutely nothing if your coaching containers don't feel safe for your ideal clients, and especially those who are underserved, like people of color. I've seen really great inclusion statements that read so well, then step into a container with somebody only to realize, hang on, this was just something that was written, but it is not a lived, this is not what they are practicing in their business. And that is why inclusive marketing must be backed by inclusive practice. You've got, if you're writing something, if you're saying this is who you are and what you do, you've got to back it up, because what people are reading, they're relying on that to be the truth. And when they step into your space and realize, oh, you're really good with words, but when it comes to executing, when it comes to serving, when it comes to having an inclusive practice, that is lacking. When it comes to decolonizing, it's deep work and it's hard to do alone. That's why I always recommend working with an experienced coach who can help you audit your business for inclusion. Someone who can look at your systems, your messaging, your offers, and show you what you can't see from the inside. For me, one of the things that has really helped me grow in my journey as a coach has been getting somebody else to look at what I'm creating, to look at what I'm thinking, and bring different angles and ideas into the mix. Even when you look at it from the context of a family, always inviting the ideas and the thoughts of others so that you can take that into consideration. Because sometimes you might plan something that you think everybody will love, but it turns out that that's something that perhaps wasn't something that excites them. And so coming back to your business, having someone who can show you what you can't see from the inside, because sometimes you're too deep in it. And this is part of the work I do. I offer private audits, and I teach this work in Represented, my signature 10-week online program for online business owners who want to make racial equity a lived value in their work. If this episode is resonating, then I invite you to join the waitlist. Represented is where the awareness becomes action and where clarity turns into change. And finally, let's be real. Decolonizing your business takes time. And don't be fooled that this is a 1, 2, 3-step process, as I said in the very beginning. No, it's a lifelong process, one that requires self-interrogation and a self-commitment to the journey to do things out of the ordinary, out of the norm. But it's also one of the most expansive and rewarding journeys you can take. To decolonize really is to look at life and business through a lens you may never have used before. And it will change everything. It'll change how you lead, it'll change how you earn, and it will change how you serve. Inside Represented, we do this work together in community, with support, and with a whole lot of compassion. And so, my friend, I hope today's episode has given you something new to reflect on. If you're feeling called to take this work deeper, I'd love to support you inside Represented. You can join the waitlist now at anigishuru.com/represented.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. P. Mbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented from coast to coast.